Did the 8th largest country in the world with a 216 million person population just adopt Bitcoin? Well, their central bank, which oversees their $2.1 trillion economy, is now under pressure to put 10% of all of its country's reserves into Bitcoin. So who are we talking about today? Are we talking about Poland, the 21st largest country, who recently has the 3rd largest presidential candidate talking about implementing a Bitcoin strategic reserve? No. Are we talking about China, the country who's just made a 3-pronged pivot into Bitcoin this week? We're not. Are we talking about Morocco, the $141 billion giant who literally yesterday came out and said, yeah, you know what? We're backflipping from our Bitcoin ban that we implemented in 2017. We are now legalizing cryptocurrencies. We're not talking about Morocco. We are talking about the largest economy in Latin America. We are also talking about a country that's home to the largest digital bank in South America that's been quietly invested into by yours truly, Warren Buffett. So who are we talking about? We are talking about Brazil, the country home to 216 million people, as we can see, has had a strategic Bitcoin reserve bill introduced into the Chamber of Duties. And today we're going to be talking about why this specific domino is far more consequential than anything we've seen in the past 2 weeks. And again, all of those countries I rattled off in the introduction of today's video have adopted Bitcoin in the past week in one way, shape, or form, okay? So China's done 3 things, the 3-pronged pivot, as I'm calling it, that we're going to be discussing at the end of today's video. But again, Poland, we have Morocco, they're all following in the footsteps of America. But I'm most interested by what Brazil has done with this new bill right here that we're going to be quickly breaking down in today's video. So let's first, before we get ahead of ourselves and we look at things on a global level, let's have a look at what's happening first with Brazil. So they've introduced this new bill, which is going to allow 5% of its international reserves to be invested into Bitcoin. Let's have a look a little bit further, and we're going to also be going to the source. And again, you guys know I don't speak Portuguese, but we're going to try our best. We're going to jump on over here. This is the official document. So again, I really like how it's short, sweet. And again, the only thing that you guys need to be paying attention to is what I've highlighted right at the top of that document. Now, again, I am not going to be reading that. That's in Portuguese. But this entire bill is focused about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is literally first line of the document. The second line of the document, countries all around the world right now are coming to the realization that Bitcoin is the thing to own, okay? It really is the thing to own, okay? And what I think is most interesting is, as we can see by this article, it's actually comparing the amount of Bitcoin that Brazil's neighbor, Venezuela, is holding. So the government of Venezuela, as we can see here, owns 240 Bitcoin. And we all know that Venezuela is a little bit of a basket case. Okay, again, I don't want to offend any of my Venezuelan friends. They're incredibly friendly people. You meet them all over Latin America and Europe. But the country is in a shambles. Economically, it's not in a good place. So the fact that the Venezuelan government owns more Bitcoin than the Brazilian government, we can see that it's been cited as a concern or an interesting thing that the Brazilian government should be paying attention to. Let's not forget what's going on with Bhutan right now. Again, they've got a $2.5 billion GDP. They're what, 10 times smaller than El Salvador, 15 times smaller than El Salvador, but their Bitcoin holdings are about $1.2 billion in size. Meaning that if Bitcoin continues to appreciate and go up in value, again, big caveat, if Bitcoin could go to zero, who knows? But if Bitcoin continues doing what it's done for the past 15 years, and that is be the best performing asset in human history, what we're going to see is Bhutan's Bitcoin holdings are going to balloon in value and Bhutan's GDP could potentially boom in value, because what happens if Bhutan turns into the next El Salvador? Bitcoiners might move there. They might invest there. Have a look at what's happened to property prices in El Salvador. They're one of the best performing assets in the world since Bitcoin was created, implemented as legal tender back in 2021 in El Salvador. Property prices in El Zonte are up 3, 4, 5x. Okay, it's really expensive down there. What happens if the same thing happens to Bhutan? Their GDP is going to boom, and they are going to climb that leaderboard in regards to global GDPs compared. Again, nation states pay close attention to how they compare to others. And now Brazil in this document is saying, hang on a minute, why is Venezuela owning more Bitcoin than Brazil? This is stupid. This is not right. The reason for why this is not right is because, as we can see, Brazil has a $2.174 trillion GDP. Venezuela, let's compare. They don't even have a chart. Oh no. Okay. We have a number. I was about to really start ragging on my Venezuelan friends here, but we can see, okay, they have a $102 billion GDP, okay? So Brazil is 20 times bigger, okay? Venezuela is 100 billion and they don't even have a chart. Brazil has 2.17 trillion. This is shocking. I've never actually looked up the GDP of a country and not been shown a chart. I mean, if you look at any country, for example, you can see that. That's why I was so surprised. You always see a chart of the GDP, but not Venezuela. Their economy is in that much of a shambles that things ain't looking good for them. Now, Brazil, I think, is most interesting because, as we can see from this headline here, they were paid a special visit from a very special Bitcoiner, Michael Saylor. We broke down a video on this topic earlier in the year documenting Michael Saylor's secret road trip to Brazil. And we said, pay close attention. Why is Michael Saylor going down and speaking to the central bankers in Brazil? This was months ago. We said, pay close attention. Look what's happened now. Now we have the central bank being badgered into adopting Bitcoin. We can see after there was some rumors and some speculations online, Michael tweeted this out on Twitter. Recently, I traveled to Brazil to discuss Bitcoin with a wide variety of investors, executives, bankers, technologists, policymakers, and journalists. And he released an interview here as well. Okay, so again, Michael's saying the quiet parts out loud. He said, look, yep, I was talking and meeting with bankers in Brazil, and I don't find it coincidental that now we have Brazil making a move into Bitcoin. Now, let's really not understate how important the news of Brazil is. They've got 216 million people for a population. They're huge. They're a really big country. 216 million. Think about that. Around 30 to 40% of you guys watching today's live stream are from America. America's got what? Population of 350 million? Brazil's nearly as big as America. They're a massive country, population-wise. For their central bank to potentially be investing, 5% of their reserves, international reserves into Bitcoin? This is a big deal. If the bill passes, the government could gradually purchase up to $3 billion worth of Bitcoin. Again, this ain't chump change. $3 billion it's a good buy. Michael Saylor did just buy $3 billion worth of Bitcoin this week. But we can see lawmakers in Brazil right now are making a move. And before I start diving into this quote right here from Dennis Porter, which is an interesting one, I'm going to tease it. Many people believe that Brazil is unlikely to be the last nation heading in this direction. Dennis Porter, CEO of Satoshi Action Fund, highlighted the sheer volume of similar proposals, stating, I am about to speak to a body of international lawmakers about Bitcoin strategic reserves. there is more interest in Bitcoin than ever before. An orange tidal wave of Bitcoin bills are coming for the entire planet. Now, we recently had the pleasure of interviewing Dennis Porter in person here at El Salvador. Well, actually, I'm in Peru. I was in El Salvador last week. And he said, I don't want to give too much away, but he is in personal talks with at least 4 different nation states around the world who want his help in drafting similar bills about strategic Bitcoin reserves that he has helped be put into action in America. So what comes next? Are we about to see a wave of nation state FOMO, all wanting to buy Bitcoin? We're going to be discussing that in a moment, but if you are a retail participant looking to buy Bitcoin, I'd again like to remind you guys about what Rhino Bitcoin is doing. Again, there's a lot of new people getting into the Bitcoin space today. There's a lot of people who want an easy, all-in-one Bitcoin super application, and we believe that is what Rhino is. And Rhino Bitcoin, you can buy Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin, even use the Lightning Network to transfer Bitcoin all around the world with very little fees. As you can see, it has one of the slickest user interfaces there is in the space. It's incredibly easy to use. We highly recommend you check out what Rhino Bitcoin is doing. Everything you need to know about Rhino Bitcoin will be linked down below in the description of today's video. And I think the time is now. If you are new to Bitcoin, we're at $97,000 per coin. I think the time to just maybe get your feet wet, just a little bit, buy a little bit of Bitcoin. That time is now, okay? We can see at the time of recording, we are at $97,000 per coin. Price of Bitcoin's about to have its best November in history. Have a look at that big green candle. Have a look at that. I nearly called that candle something I probably shouldn't, but have a look at it. It's big, it's green, it's long. That right there is a $25,000 monthly candle. And it is the biggest monthly candle in history. 37%. That's a 40% candle. Okay, a lot of back here in this consolidation period, we were really warning you guys, look, be prepared. October is called Uptober for a reason. We were saying November typically on average gives us something like 30 to 40% returns in Bitcoin. Be prepared. What's happened? October's been massive. November's been even bigger. And historically, what happens in December's? Historically, a very bullish month for Bitcoin. Again, I mean, we've moved a lot very quickly here. So I don't want you guys to get the impression that we're telling you guys Bitcoin's going to be 150K by the end of December. We're not saying that. Anybody who does say that with authority doesn't know what they're talking about, because nobody knows where the price of Bitcoin is going in the short or the medium term. Okay, but just stay paying close attention to the fundamentals of what Bitcoin is doing. Right now, things have never looked more bullish for Bitcoin. I genuinely mean that. All year that we've been making these YouTube videos, we've been saying that, you know, the differential between the fundamentals and the price of Bitcoin have been some of the largest discrepancies we've ever seen. So again, just stay tuned, guys. There is right now 2,000 of you guys tuning in from Twitter and YouTube. So I'd love to know what you guys think about Brazil. If you enjoyed today's live stream, you might enjoy another that we did earlier on in the week, breaking down the maths for why we could see $226,000 Bitcoin much quicker than you might think. After this live stream's ended, I'm going to put a link to that video somewhere around there. With all that said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. I hope you enjoyed that quick and short and sharp little update about Brazil. I think we need to be paying close attention to what is going on in that country. And with all that said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. As All Night Hider says, bruise the like button. We'd appreciate that. And we will see you guys